Hello and welcome back. Today I wanted to discuss the Andesite shoto from Bendu Armory. Now recently I looked at the feldspar shoto, and the feldspar shoto seems to go really well with their radium saber. So if you had a radium in one hand and the feldspar in your offhand, it would be sort of a matched theme. The Andesite shoto takes its design cues much more heavily from the obsidian. You'll notice some of those same angles of swooshes. You'll notice that same sort of beveling on the end there. So this actually makes a really nice pair. Let me put a chassis in this obsidian so you can see them together. This was their Adamite staff that I reviewed recently. So if you missed that review, you can look for it on my channel. But here we go. So this is a red carbon fiber obsidian paired with a red carbon fiber andesite. So a very nice looking pair. Now, like with the other shoto, while this isn't substantially shorter than their full-sized saber, the obsidian, the weight distribution is very different. Because with this one, while you have this big hollow end, with this one, the more extreme taper means that you don't have all that hollow down here, and the weight shifts more towards the top, which means your gripping area is right about here, and it's much more suited towards one hand. Now, the advantages of the andesite. Like I said, it's better for one hand. One of the problems that I had with the feldspar, their other shoto, when I reviewed that recently, I talked about how this has a tendency with hard use to start sliding out of your hand because the weight is still here. It's kind of heavy, it's kind of thick, and it doesn't have a choke point. Because it's also tapered at the end, there's nothing to prevent your hand from going all the way off. With the andesite, there's a widened area out here. So even if this thing does start to get away from you, it's not going to get much further than that before you're able to really take control of it and readjust your hand. Because of this widened area, which is the same thing that you get on the obsidian, it gives you a place to stop before the saber flies away. Now, that's not a big issue with dueling, but if you're doing a lot of spinning, that is something. Losing your grip on the saber as you get tired and having the saber try to pull out of your hand is something that you're going to be fighting against, especially if you're using heavier blades. So of the two shoto models, I definitely think the andesite is a much more usable, user-friendly model. It feels better in your hand, and while I like some of the details on the feldspar, some of the areas don't make as much sense to me, like the raised and lowered areas. Whereas this one, everything that's lowered is weave, everything that's raised is fiber, and this end pommel that actually kind of reminds me of the mantle on a squid. I really like how this one looks. So, very easy to use, very pleasing to the eye. One thing that I would mention on this, though, is that the set screws on this, the set screw here and the place here for a cover tech or a screw, whereas on the feldspar, it's all uniform right here, so you can do whatever you want with that. With this one, we've got some details on the, or right by where the screws go. So if I've got my set screw for my blade right here, and I've got my cover tech wheel right here, the details don't quite line up. You see how the cover tech comes off the top of the detail right there? It's a minor point, but it kind of breaks the flow of it because the cover tech is sitting above where the detail is. Okay, I have a tendency not to use cover techs on these when I'm using them, but as a belt hanger, these are awesome belt hangers because they are so durable. But if I'm using it, I have a tendency just to put a second set screw in there, which looks great. But if you're using it with the cover tech, it's just an aesthetic thing, but the cover tech doesn't quite line up as much as I would like it to right there. All right, we've got sound vents down here, and the sound on both of them is actually pretty good. The obsidian, it's a little bit better because it's got this sort of room in here to reverberate. So if I load up a sound file on here, oh, there's some music. Here's the sound on this one. Okay. It's missing a little bit of the bass that you get from reverberating in that empty end, but it's plenty loud, and it still sounds really good with the speaker that these things come with. So this is the Andesite Shoto from Bendu Armory, paired with the Feldspar Shoto. If you are if you're somebody who dual wields sabers, they make a nice set as well. So I would suggest, again, this one is something that if you've got a radium and you want an offhand weapon, this is the one for the radium. If you've got an obsidian and you want an offhand weapon, this is the one for the obsidian. If you want two shotos, you can either get a match, or you can either get a set of one of each, or just get two of the one that you prefer. I personally prefer this one, but they're both very nice and they're both very unique. And that's one thing that you can kind of count on with Bendu Armory, is because they're doing something in a way that nobody else is doing it. Everybody else, when they make a saber, they're machining parts, which leads to hard edges, which leads to a lot of metal, which makes things look mechanical. And that's something you see a lot in Star Wars universe. Bendu Armory is doing things with injection and fluid and carbon fiber, and that leads to a look that's more reminiscent of some of the more organic sabers that you get in Legacy era and some of the ones that you saw in Old Republic, but much more common in Legacy era with Vong and Cade Skywalker and that sort of stuff. Most of the sabers look more like this. And that was a part of the market that wasn't really represented. Trying to get organic shapes with metal is a ridiculously complicated process. If you look at what they went through to machine the when Saberforge machined the Nihilus saber, this is a POC store. I think they molded these, which was a whole lot easier. But machining something that's organic and asymmetrical, that was tricky. Okay, with injection molding, they have more freedom in terms of what they can do, and the end product is a very different looking saber experience. So I kind of like what they bring to the market. All right, so Andesite Shoto from Bendu Armory. Hopefully this has been of use to you. If so, join me back for more reviews, and I'll see you next time.